Okay, welcome back to the third introductory video. Picking up where we left off, I'm on the second item of my grading notes from previous semesters. So the point here is I want you to do the research, but copying and pasting for practically any scenario is wrong. If you're going to copy and paste, you're going to have to use it as a quote. And quotes are typically something that is significant. You can't just go to a paragraph in a book and copy that and then quote it and saying, well, this author said that. No, that's not going to work. It has to be quote worthy. Something that's significant, a significant tie to the person who said it. Okay. Now, I will tell you that this happens occasionally. Not everyone has problems with this, but it happens occasionally. So let's continue on. The abstract's not a preview of coming attraction, so don't use future tense. Don't refer back to the document. Don't say, well, this document's going to do this, and the article's going to talk about that. No, just kind of make it a standalone document. Here's the analysis that was performed. Here's the results that were found. Here's some of the conclusions. Boom, 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 boom. Typically, an abstract is probably no more than about 3/4 of a page. And I said, although future tense is acceptable, it's discouraged. So don't say, this paper will discuss. You can just say the paper discusses. And never refer to yourself. The only time that this works is if you're a known person. I mean, if you're an expert in the field and you can say, well, I've analyzed this and I believe. If you're a nobody, which more than likely you are, wait, did I just insult you? Then no, just say, this paper is analyzed. Don't refer to yourself in the document. So use like third person to write the entire document. By the way, this might be a good time to mention that some of the other professors at the university are absolutely have an insane obsession on whether or not you use active voice and passive voice. I'm not that way. Don't get excited about using passive voice. There are scenarios where that works really well. As an example, kind of a break from what we're talking about, but bear with me. Now you're writing a set of instructions, or let's say you're writing a contract for a custodial service, and you said the floors will be swept daily. There's some ambiguity there in there. Like, oh yeah? Who's supposed to sweep the floor? So yes, there's some times where active voice is better, where you say the contractor will sweep the floor daily to remove ambiguity. Sometimes ambiguity is a good thing. When I'm writing an instruction manual and I say, okay, to toss this grenade, you put it in your right hand and you hold your arm back and the pin is pulled. Well, is there any ambiguity there? Well, who's pulling the pin? Well, no, of course not. So when there's no chance for you to get confused, it's perfectly okay to use passive voice. Okay, now back to the topic. So please do remember to cite all tables and figures. You can't just throw a table or a figure in there unless you refer to it somewhere in your document. And don't just say table 1. I mean, normally you're going to have a sentence or two that describes how table 1 is significant or what's the point of having it in there. So yes, that's going to have to happen. Make sure that every place in your references there actually is a citation. I've done this before where I'm looking at a paper and I go, wow, I don't remember seeing a citation for that. So I, just do a search and it's not used at all. So don't leave things in the references that aren't used. And you might, be culling the paper down. Maybe you wrote it and it's 15 pages long and you start pulling paragraphs out. Well, go back to the references and make sure you pull those guys out that don't apply. Now, I must admit, it is perfectly normal to have one item in references that's cited multiple times. You can have it cited 30 or 40 times. If you have a particular text or book that you're using that's central to your cause, yeah, you might have many citations to that same item. But make sure the reverse is true, that every place in the references you have at least one citation. People have trouble with this APA format. We're going to show how to do this in Microsoft Word and Excel in just a moment, but it does not have any vertical lines. Why? I don't know, but it just doesn't have vertical lines. Okay, there should only be one font for the entire document, including the text in the header. Now, some people have problems because their software does some funky things. They'll go into the header and they'll make a tweak, and then so now the header is in a different font than everything else. Yes, the title page should be the title in the header on the first page. It should be in, let's start over. The title in the header should be in uppercase, except for the words running head, which only appears in the first page. Don't indent the first line in the abstract. And then references. The gold standard for references is a peer review journal. That means other people have looked at it and have had an opportunity to agree or disagree. The worst reference you can get is some personal blog or some personal ranting on the web where he could just make up crap, put it on the web, and you're citing it in a scholarly journal. Now, that's just not going to work. So for this particular course, you may not use the textbook, and you may not use Wikipedia. Some of you guys have remembered the story about Wikipedia if you've been in one of my classes before. Wikipedia has a really strange rule, and the rule goes like this. The majority rules. So let's say, for example, that you've done some research on Jesse James, and you found out that everyone who thought that he was born on the 1st of July, that they're wrong. He was actually born on the 2nd of July. You have definitive proof that he was born on the 2nd, although commonly people think he's born on the 1st. So you go to Wikipedia and you go in there, and anyone can allow us to change. Now, you're the foremost authority, right? You got a PhD in American history, and you did your doctoral dissertation on Jesse James, and you are the expert. And so you go to Wikipedia and you change the date on his birth to the 2nd. Wikipedia is not going to allow you to make that change. Not because you're wrong, because that's not what the majority of people think. Crazy, huh? So Wikipedia is not necessarily the good information. It's not the best information. That's why we don't like you to use Wikipedia. It's not just the fact that it's cheap and easy way of getting references, is not reliable. Okay, so let me get out of this, and I'm going to go back to the syllabus really quick, and we're going to look at that rubric. So the rubric for writing goes like this. Okay, 10% of your grade is going to be on, did you meet the technical requirements of the assignment? The assignment's going to say, I want 4 pages double space, I want a table, I want boom, 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 boom. The technical requirements. If you meet all the technical requirements, that's 10% of your grade. The next one is the writing part. 25% is writing, and this is not an English class, okay? I'll admit that. But I do want you to be organized. I want you to be persuasive. I want you to be compelling. I want you to demonstrate that you understand the concepts of whatever the topic is for the paper. If you can show me that you know what the hell you're talking about, you're good. So the writing part really isn't, grammar and spelling. That's not what I'm after. I'm talking about, can you demonstrate that you actually know what the heck's going on? The next one is original content. And if you look at the percent, original content is actually the highest percent of the grade. So I've mentioned this, what 3, 4, 5 times so far? We've only done a handful of videos, and I mentioned it that many times. Perhaps the professor is really serious about this. Yes, original content. I'm expecting 10 to 15% of the paper being original content. That's what I'm expecting. So yeah, make sure I can spot original content. Research. In your sources, you got to do your sources correctly. You can't have any of those prohibitive sources. Got to have all the references and citations correct. APA formatting, yeah, okay. That's kind of important, but not near as important as actually doing the research. So I'm only doing 10% for formatting and 5% for grammar and spelling. Again, this is not an English class. If this was a class in English, formatting and grammar and spelling would probably be, 30 and 40% of the grade. Not here. It's 10 and 5% of the grade. So look at the grading rubric, and you can tell what it is I'm expecting you to do. I'm very interested in original content and your ability to understand the topic. Yep, those are the hot buttons. Followed by, did you do your research correctly? Followed by, did you meet the requirements? Did you do formatting? And last, can you spell? Okay, so I'm going to show you an easy way you can do tables in Microsoft Excel. Now, you don't have to use Microsoft Excel, but I find it easy. So, here's just some fake data. If you recall, the title is going to be in italics, so I just make that italics. I needed some lines above and below. So you know how this works in Excel. You light up the row that you want, and I can do this underline, and it's going to put it at the bottom of the underline, right? So now it looks like that, and so I need to have another underline here, and so now that covers the top and bottom underline, and I need an underline basically for the heading for the table. So I add another, and there you go. That's a pretty slick, cheap, and easy way of doing the correct table format in Excel. Then you just light this thing up, copy and paste it into your Word document, and you're ready to go. I don't necessarily always use the title in here because I want to make sure all the fonts are correct. So after I've pasted it, I actually light it back up and make sure all the fonts are the same. Okay, we're going to show you one more little trick, and that is how to do the headers. Now, this is kind of a technical discussion, and it kind of deals with Microsoft Word, and if you're not using Microsoft Word or you're not using the exact same version that I have, it'll be slightly different, but the concepts are the same. So, first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to make a small tweak to Microsoft Word so that it shows the ruler at the top. So I'm going to click on this little View button and tell it that I want to see the ruler. Now I get to see this. Okay, if you go back and I want to insert a heading across the top, there's actually a way you can do insert headers. There really isn't a pre-built header that's going to work exactly the way we want. So I'm going to do the page number first. So I go to page number, and I want it at the top of the page, and I want it all the way over to the right. Now what it did, it created a right tab. There's already a center tab in there, and I need a traditional left tab right at the margin. Now, when I add tabs, I usually kind of add them out in the open so I can see them. See how I just clicked on the ruler, and then I'm just going to grab this guy and drag him so he lines up. I don't ever try to put it exactly on there. So now I'm going to start typing, and it's going to look strange, but just bear with me. So I'm going to type, this is the title. Well, it looks funky, doesn't it? But what happens? Watch what happens when I hit the tab key. Once, it goes to the center. Second time, it goes all the way over to the left. And there you go. Now, you might think, well, wait. The first page has to have something slightly different. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to light this up and do copy. And then I'm going to tell it, yes, I want it different on the first page. It unfortunately took it all away. So I do paste. And now I can go in there and put in the running head colon thing. So now I have a page header that only affects the first page, and then it has the running head. And although it's kind of hard to tell here, let me just close this, and I'll generate an extra page to show you. So the second page number is correct, and it only has the heading, and the first page has the running head. So that's about it for this section. See you for the next time.